One planet, 7.3 billion people, only one you. Life offers us many opportunities and learning experiences. Are you ready to explore and discover this beautiful planet, the life and energy all around us, the spiritual world, and what is unseen, along with your own personal soul adventure? Marc Lainhart, the Intuitive Prospector, is the spiritual connection you have been prospecting for. Internationally known as a tested and professional clairvoyant medium and spiritual advisor, Marc's work as a metaphysical teacher, medical instructor, radio show host, inspirational writer, and hiking guide are here to help you on a journey of self-discovery, healing, inspiration, education, and a whole lot of spiritual awesomeness. Dare to dream, dare to explore, dare to live. For more information on Marc's spiritual practice in Seattle, Washington, please visit marclainhart.com or internet search The Intuitive Prospector.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, ignition, liftoff.
All right. Hey, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, beautiful prospectors, wherever you're out in the world, whatever this day is bringing to you. Welcome to Metaphysical Mocha Mondays. I am your host, Marc Lainhart, the Intuitive Prospector, here every Monday morning at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, here on the Intuitive Prospector page and my other social media pages, including YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Tumblr. I think what else I have. So, but the main page is the Intuitive Prospector page, where we show up every Monday morning to have inspiration, encouragement, motivation, discussions about what's going on in society, what I am feeling or picking up as a psychic, as a medium, as a seer, as a futurist, talking about what's going to unfold in our roaring 20s. And we do that over a nice cup of coffee. So grab your coffee, grab your tea, grab your protein shake, grab your water, grab your hot cocoa or cold cocoa, depending on where you're at in the world. And let's move into the magic of the moment. let's have a discussion today. Going to talk about ego and higher self, talk about things that have been taking place within the last few weeks. Some, exciting developments have taken place. You'll notice here that I've got my human pin, but I've also got my SETI pin, which is search for extraterrestrial intelligence. And this is a story I've been following closely with the report that just came out. So you can get that. You can get that report and that link right off the Intuitive Prospector page, where the Pentagon has officially announced. And this is what's interesting. I knew that, for this morning's message, we're going to talk about a few things, but, I knew that the Pentagon was going to say that there are little green men. I knew that was not going to happen. I've worked for government for almost 20 years, and I knew that wasn't going to be the case. But what I found interesting, I just watched a great documentary the other day, or not a documentary, a live show where they were talking with all the different experts, from astrology to astrophysics to quantum physics to pilots, actual former pilots. And it was on, I think, the Travel Channel, and it was UFO Disclosure Live. And it was actually interesting. So if you get a chance to check that out, that link is also on the Intuitive Prospector page and the Soul Adventures page, where Soul Adventures on Facebook is all about just different adventures that's going on in life with people all around the world. It's quite awesome. We're almost at 4,000 members now. So if you don't know that page, look for Soul Adventures. Join the page. It's a public page. It's open to the public to share amazing soul adventures. And so I have the report over on that page. I have that link to the show over on that page. And it was just fascinating. And what's fascinating is the Pentagon said there's 144 in the report of unidentified aerial phenomenon, or what we would still call UFOs. I just found it interesting that they changed the name to UAPs versus UFOs, which we've been calling them since 1947, actually. The first report, believe it or not, but even before Roswell, we all hear about Roswell, but even before Roswell, the first noted recorded sighting of a UFO was here in Washington State by Marc Lainhart, a pilot coming from Yakima. Small pilot had gone over the airwaves through the FCC regulations, so it's a recorded documentation. And he said that he had seen 9 silver discs floating, and that's where flying saucers became the actual name. And then just a few months later is when Roswell, had reported the crash. The Air Force had come out and said it was a crash, and then the next day said no, it was a weather balloon, and then again and changed it over and over again to create confusion. So what's fun about this Roaring 20s decade that we're in, I said it was going to be our Roaring 20s, full of adventure, full of discovery, full of exploration, full of change, full of transformation, full of conflict. Even we're going to continue to see political parties. We're actually seeing a fourth party emerge, which I call the insurrection party, or the sedition party, or it's a party that's completely going its own way. So we're going to see civil strife. We're going to see we're going to see political strife, political turbulence within the United States in this decade, especially as we lead up to the next elections. Even possibly looking at some sort of cold civil war, or a new war based on technology. I think there's going to be a huge natural disaster. I don't know if that's going to be Yellowstone or not. I'm still kind of on the fence with that, but some sort of major event that's going to bring people together. Because if you guys have been following my work, I've been talking for almost 2 years. I've talked about UFOs and UAPs. I've talked about the insurrection on January 6th, and I talked about the presidential election. I have predicted all of that. I have predicted the great coming together, and how something is going to bring us together, some sort of catalyst, some sort of trigger. I think it's going to be more a natural event, something like a Yellowstone, which is a super volcano that gets people to come together and put their political differences aside, put their religious differences aside, and work together to be human beings, to actually come to more of a global planet of human beings. Because we're really at such a divide here. We're such, the ignorance is just amazing. Ignorance is easy in this day and age, and it's amazing, it's appalling, it's disgusting, it's sad. As an observation, it's just a lot of ego, not a lot of higher self. And with this report from the Pentagon coming out, that's part of the stuff that we're going to start to see this next decade, as we move into space, the space race for space capitalization, space privatization, space tourism, Technology is going to change for us in this decade. Quantum computing is going to become a thing. Nanotechnology is going to become a thing. Robotics is going to become a thing. Artificial intelligence is going to become a thing. And it's going to be how to rebalance, when we get into ego and higher self, and I'll talk about that. But this report was most fascinating to me because it says, the Pentagon says that there's 144 unidentified flying aerial phenomenon. They could only confirm one out of the 100. So out of the 144 cases that are in this report, now remember, this is a unclassified report, which means that there is still a classified report that's gone to Congress that us as the public will not get to see until Freedom of Information Act and a certain period of time allows that classified report to be released. But here's what's going to happen. There's going to be more reviews. There's going to be more hearings on this report. This report is just the tip of the iceberg. And that's what I said with my predictions. Not going to be little green men. It's going to be metamaterial, element 115. These vehicles that seem to, break the laws of our physics and how we look at aerodynamics of, planes that have wings on it, how it defies our gravity, how it moves at such rapid speed. Compared to our latest fighter, which can go about 1,500 miles an hour, this thing can travel 35,000 miles an hour. That's like 5,500 Gs. The amount of gravity there's nothing on the planet that can do that and not leave a sonic boom behind it. That's, those are the kind of things I look at from a science standpoint and a spiritual standpoint. If you guys follow my work, you know that I come from a very logical, life-saving, scientific background with my work in healthcare, working in the Coast Guard, the fire service. But then moved into spiritualism and psychic and mediumship because of my own, experiences, great loss, my own near-death experience, my own out-of-body experience. So I like to merge the two. So this report with these cases is official. The Pentagon's talking about it. That's never happened before. It's always been kind of, conspiracy, or you don't really talk about it. They move away. Or we have no comment at this time. And for the rest of us that are wearing the tinfoil hats, the crazy people, we're like, no, everybody's seen something around the world, and this has been documented for thousands of years. Why are we not having a conversation? This is the conversation starter. This will be the match that lights the moving forward to first contact. We're not alone in the universe. It's just what I call the drip, drip, drip format. And the reason they do that from a psychology standpoint is you don't want to cause fear and panic. And most of the population, that based on polling, I don't necessarily support polling or trust polling, but 65 to 70% of the population believe that we are not alone in the universe and that there is another species, whether they come from outer space or they've always been here and they're just more advanced and have ways to, conceal themselves, whether it's in the oceans or multi-dimensional. I mean, the way these objects, these TikToks move, they move at very rapid, speed. And if you follow physics, when something moves at a faster speed, it gets faster and faster and faster and faster and faster. It ends up disappearing when you don't see it through the physical eye. So I think this is just the start. This is the tip of the iceberg. I don't feel like it's anything to be scared of or nefarious, because again, I think if you go to the dark jungle theory, we lit a fire in the jungle years ago when I was born in 72, when Voyager went out, saying we're here, we're the third rock from the sun. The dark forest theory is when you're in the jungle and you light a fire, you're letting your prey know where you are at, and you're making yourself vulnerable. We've made ourselves vulnerable, and I think if they were to come for nefarious reason, resources, or make us cattle, I think they would have already done that, especially before we reached our nuclear age, which was right around the 40s, when we started seeing a lot of, right after World War II. And I think they're watching us at our technology as we start to move out into space. So it's just been interesting to watch all of this, the timing of it, an official report from the Pentagon saying, yes, there are cases. It didn't really answer much. But again, this is just the light. This is the match that lights the fire. This is the tip of the iceberg that's going to continue to unfold over this next the roaring 20s, this roaring 20s of ours. And there's just a lot going on. We just set a record temperature here in Seattle. We had 109 degrees with humidity, which has never been seen before in the Pacific Northwest ever. Smashed the old record of 104. So we're looking at global warming. We're looking at this pandemic. The pandemic, you guys, is not over. As of today, right now, when I get on my Smart News app and I follow the coronavirus, in the United States, right now we have, based on deaths, we have 605,000 deaths. And I follow this just from my healthcare background in my teachings, as a certified healthcare provider. So I'm always following the data. I'm always following the science of this. And 605,000 deaths so far, 605,533 according to deaths in the United States. Globally, we're at 3.9. I believe that we're going to actually, when it's all said and done, the numbers are not accurate right now. I think the numbers will be much higher when we get a global sense. That's almost 4 million people that have passed into the spirit world from this pandemic. And the pandemic itself, COVID-19 does not have a cure. So I just want you to remember that COVID-19, until there's a cure, we're going to have to find ways to mitigate and live with this virus, just like we have with other viruses. Kids get their measles and smallpox vaccines before they go to school, right? I think this will become a standard vaccination in order to stop the spread, which is mitigation. And that's another thing that we've seen with divide and people wanting to get vaccinated. I'm fully vaccinated. Other people don't want to get vaccinated for certain reasons, political, or maybe there's a health reason, which is understandable. More reason for me to get vaccinated, so I'm protecting others and not spreading. But until there's a cure, this is something that we're going to live with for the next however many years COVID is around, because there's no cure. Just like AIDS, there's no cure. There's most of our viruses today we don't have a cure for. So we have to find ways to live with it, to find balance with it, to mitigate it so it doesn't spread. And don't take my word for it. Watch the people that are in states that aren't vaccinated. You're going to see the Delta variants of this virus spread. It's going to have hot pockets, not the entire nation anymore, because almost 70% of the population in the United States has been vaccinated. But there's always going to be that 30%, and you'll see it in certain parts of the world, in certain states where there's a low vaccination rate, and the COVID will spread. And science will tell the story. But it's telling a story too, how the country's separating, and we're seeing from blue to red, from vaccinated to not vaccinated. This virus is real. This virus is a hoax. This is going to be a big part of our moving forward with the United States. There's going to be some challenging times ahead, but by the end of the day, I do see this great coming together, and I do believe it's going to be something to do with nature. Nature's already brought us this far with this pandemic. Came from nature. The cure comes from nature. Nature will always remind us of our place on this planet and our place in history. So what I wanted to talk about today, just to kind of inspire you and motivate you, is there's a lot of ego in the world right now, and we see it. There's a lot of awakening as well. There's things that are starting to happen when there comes to change, whether it's UAPs, UFOs, politics, pandemics. Spiritual awakening is really what we call the avidya, or ividya, I-V-I-D-Y-A, which in Sanskrit means incorrect understanding. And a spiritual awakening represents the lifting of the veil of ignorance. And we see a lot. Like I said, I've just been amazed. I've been appalled. I've been taken back by the amount of ignorance from people that I follow, people that I was friends with, family members, people that I don't understand. And not from an opinion or judgment. I'm not judging them. I'm trying to understand the perspective and how the ignorance can be just so stark and right in your face. And that's part of the spiritual awakening that we're starting to see of when you're going through this, which can be very challenging. This is the state of not knowing what to do and what not to know. Through social media, through the news cycles, there's just a lot going on, and you don't know which way to turn. And so, at the heart of this ignorance is what we call the tamas, one of the three gunras, or the primary qualities of the universe. The tamas embodies darkness, dullness, inactivity, entropy, and binds you into the physical, mental, and emotional quicksand of inertia. That is what this physical world does to us. And, fortunately, through the process of spiritual awakening, it runs directly counter to the currents of avidya. I think I'm saying that right, in your life. So the evolution of consciousness generates a forward pull, a momentum towards growth, transformation, and a change that is one of the most powerful forces in the universe. I would equate it to the power of being born, the power of sex, the power of death. This pull, this momentum, is one of the most powerful pulls in the universe. And we're seeing that in society. And again, it's almost like this pull is pulling people in two different directions. It's like a spaceship achieving escape velocity. Spiritual awakening punches you out of this limited gravity, this limited three-dimensional physical well of ignorance that you're in, or that we're all in, and it shoots you towards an ultimate destination of what they would call cosmic self-realization. So, this escaping ignorance is not easy. It's hard. There's a lot of people that we're surrounded by. I'm sure you've seen it within your own family, within your own sphere of influence, your own friend network, maybe people that you work with and colleagues. But the ego is always going to come from a place of, I am the victim of a circumstance. And you're always going to see people on the ego side, and you're going to see people on the higher self side, moving towards that consciousness, that pulling away from that gravity, that stickiness, that negative energy that's in our physical world. And that's part of our physical world, and the last few years has been challenging for me as a psychic, as a medium, as a spiritualist, as a seer, working with intuition, because I see stuff in the third dimension. I see stuff here, but through my meditations, my writings, my dreams, my intuition, connection to what we call the fifth dimension, that I'm seeing stuff ahead of time. So, I see it, I share it, and then I wait for that synergy to catch up. And a lot of the stuff that I've already predicted is caught up. And what I'm telling you is, as we move forward, there's going to be more opening of this box. There's going to be more reveal of things that have been hidden in the dark and long, not discussed. Whether you see it from, equal pay, equality, Black Lives Matter, racism, systemic racism, humanity, global awareness, global warmth. It's all coming to a head. And when we're in our ego space, we come from a place of, I am the victim of my circumstances, where your higher self will actually go, I create my own reality. That's why I love Star Wars, because George Lucas talked about this all the time. Your focus becomes your reality. Now, I could focus on the stuff that I'm seeing, and people, I take a lot of ridicule and opinion and judgment by my predictions, based on your fear mongering or you're promoting fear. No, not at all. I'm just sharing what I'm seeing. I hope that it doesn't come to pass, some of this stuff. I hope that there's not a huge natural disaster like Yellowstone erupting, which would impact not only half the United States, it would impact the world. I don't want to see people die. I don't promote violence. My family is a victim of violent crimes, but I share that because it's really about hope for the best, prepare for the worst, but have an awareness of things that may come to pass, because we live in such a fragile state of this physical world. Think about the miracles daily. We're on a planet, so there is no up or down metaphysically, that spins around a burning ball of fire. Think about that for a second. And within this planet that's 70% water, we have tides and oceans that can be impacted anytime by any kind of earthquake, any time of volcanic eruption. I live in between two big volcanoes here in Seattle, Washington. So I'm always thinking about the balance of nature, as above, so below, the sun, the moon, the tree of life. And that is always just a reminder of how fragile and delicate life is. And all it takes is one little catalyst or trigger to completely upend, just like this pandemic did for all of us. So the ego, likes to say, I live in scarcity. There is never enough. We're always wanting more. We see this as humans. Like, I have too much shit. I'll be honest with you. I have too much stuff. I don't need all this stuff in my life. And we as humans just collect and consume. Consumerism, capitalism. These are stuff that, that's a very ego driven, and there's never enough of it. And by doing so, we're also polluting our planet by what we consume. I'm very mindful about plastic. Something that started with, when I became a certified diver, seeing plastic bottles or plastic debris on every dive I've done around the world. I became aware of that. I became mindful of that, and I changed my behavior. Now, am I going to change the world by myself? No. It's going to take a collaborative effort, but I can start with little things like not consuming plastic, drinking out of water bottles, being mindful of how I'm recycling and how I'm doing my trash, and knowing that, from an ego standpoint, that there is enough. Simplicity is more, and I don't need to have more stuff, because at the end of the day, all this stuff that you see around me is great, and I'm blessed, but I don't get to take it with me. And the higher self it comes from a place of the intuition, the higher self, the spiritual self. I live in abundance. There is always enough. There's always enough. There's always enough water. There's always enough warm water to have a shower. I always think about that. What if I lived back in the 1500s, where you had to actually warm your water and pour it into a bath? Just even having warm water to take a shower daily. Some people don't have that. The ego is I'm alive temporarily, and that's scary. Some people, that I know live that way, live their lives to that accord. And that's fine. That's free will and choice, you guys. And we see it right now with everything that's going on, from the pandemic to the politics, to the divide of free will and choice, and it's dividing people. But I see a greater community and a greater consciousness of awakening that will always bring the 70% to come together. And history teaches us there's always that 30% that will resist change, will stand against change, and will fight against change. That's why we had our rebellion of the revolution that took us away from England. It gave us our first civil war. I don't believe that it's going to be our only civil war. I believe that there's another civil war coming. I've said this for 2 years now. And of course, for those of you that follow my work, go back and check my latest articles, get on my newsletter, Soul Adventures. I talk about this stuff. And of course, people are always going to have opinion and judgment, especially on social media. People are cruel and vile and mean. I feel for the younger generations because, when I went to school, you could leave it at school and it didn't follow you home. But people have such rude comments about, even just inspirational things that I post. But I've realized that is just the way that it is, and that's just noise. And I don't pay attention to that noise anymore. But people are going to call me crazy, and other people are going to work with me and do my classes and get a reading from me and mentor with me or join my development group. That's fine. That's what I've learned and come to accept, and that's my free will and my choice. But I know that I am alive temporarily, and that is awesome. That's what I carpe diem. I know that this life is temporary, but I know that I live on past this. The energy that's in my heart metaphysically goes on by the laws of physics. Scripture tells me that. I know my scripture. I'm not a pastor, as I always say. Maybe not yet. Maybe I will get ordained. Maybe I'm working towards that. But at the same time, there's many great references of, just because scripture is one book, there are many books that talk about life after death. And that's the higher self. The ego says, I'm a machine made of accidental ones and zeros. I don't believe that. I believe, some people I work with atheists and agnostics and full believers, and atheists believe that you die, you go on the ground, that's it. If that's the case, then what's the point of all this, right? If that's the case, why are we here? Why are we doing what we're doing? I believe that, that we go on, that life is learn it from experience, reincarnation, through a series of lessons, you learn, you grow. There's always hierarchy. Where the higher self says, you know what? I'm an artist made of infinite energy. We're spiritual, energetic beings here first, having this human experience. And of course, ego always tells us, I am in competition with the world. It's complicated. Yeah, you can be in competition with the world if you want, but I always say people can't compete with me because I always want to see people succeed, and I'm always in competition with myself. How can I be the better version of myself yesterday than I was today, so I can be the better version tomorrow? Because the higher self is always about being in harmony with the world, and I am happy. It's not complicated. Your focus determines your reality. I'm happy. Stick to the higher self. Stick to the abundance. Stick to the life is temporary. Carpe diem and live an awesome life. There is a lot of pain in the world, but it's through pain that we come to consciousness. The caterpillar becomes a butterfly only through an intense struggle within the cocoon. So I thought I'd just share that with you today, because there's a lot of great things that are coming in our roaring 20s. There's a lot of things that are like a box opening. It's like those mystery boxes. This box of our 20s started with this pandemic in 2020. Hindsight's 2020, right? But at the same time, this mystery box is unfolding, and it's revealing stuff that can be painful, can be catalyst for change, can be awakening, but it can also, incorporate ignorance. It can incorporate violence. It can incorporate divide. But, the vision of your spiritual journey, I used to say that one of the most useful metaphors for describing the stages of spiritual awakening is that of vision. Believe it, see it, achieve it. There's 5 different qualities of sight that represent unique steps on your spiritual journey. Glimpsing, that's the call to your adventure. I always talk about soul adventures. Become a prospector. Start to prospect. Start to have a glimpse through power of meditation, mentorship, workshops, learning, studying, writing. A call to adventure. When the student is ready, the teacher appears, as the old saying goes. Closer examination. Choose a path. I'll probably talk about this on the radio show. I'm not on the show. I'm not on radio this week. I'll be on radio next week, right? Yeah, because it's the 4th of July. So happy 4th of July, that are people that are honoring and observing 4th of July today. It was yesterday. but happy 4th of July, happy Independence Day. But I'll be on the air next week, and I'll probably be talking about a little bit more of this with the UAPs, the UFOs, the 25-5 method, about closer examination or focusing. But it's choosing a path. Don't choose a multiple paths because you'll never get anything done. Choose 5 things that you want to accomplish in your life. Seeking, or what I call prospecting, follow that path. Loss of sight is when you lose that path. You get too many things going and you lose sight of that. And of course, seeing, what I talk about all the time, and that's merging with the paths, seeing what's coming up. There's a lot coming up in our Roaring 20s, you guys. And it's not going to all be cupcakes and rainbows and unicorns and kumbaya. There will be some challenging moments ahead of us in this next decade. But this year, not so much. This year is in numerology is the year of the 5: freedom, love, adventure. Freedom, love, adventure. Juneteenth just became a national federal holiday, which is representation of freedom. And it's interesting that it aligned with the year of the 5, which is all about freedom. And now we have an actual federal holiday, Juneteenth, that becomes Freedom Day. Interesting, right? So that's why I love numerology, to see the patterns, to see the trends, and to help me what I'm seeing coming forward. So a lot of great things coming, but my focus is determining my reality. I will focus on the good things, the great coming together, sustainability, self-mastery, homeostasis, things I've been talking about for 2 years. But on the backside, on the back burner, there will continue to be ignorance, violence, divide, possibly a civil war, political, the fight for democracy is going to be a big thing in the next few years as this country divides. And maybe the United States is not all 50 states combined. Maybe the United States breaks up and becomes 2 different or 3 different parts of the country based on ideology, based on the will of the people, because that is what, democracy is about. So there will be a fight for democracy. And of course, my favorite topic, UFOs, UAPs, and the full disclosure that we are not alone in the universe. And maybe that's the one thing that brings us together besides a big natural disaster like, Yellowstone erupting, super volcano kind of thing. But just remember, life is fragile, guys. We live on a scale, and anytime that scale gets tipped, we live out of balance. And again, we're on a planet going around a ball of fire. So just appreciate today, seize the day, or what I say, carpe diem. Thanks for hanging out with me here in the Mocha Mondays room. I'm going to get ready for the Healing Cafe. And if you've never been to the Healing Cafe, how it works is this show ends. This goes over to my YouTube channel. So follow me over on YouTube. Follow me over on Insight Timer. Follow me through Alexa. You can say, Alexa, open up Positive Living, and you can get spiritual, insightful tips every day from me. You can go to marclainhart.com or just internet search Intuitive Prospector to get to all the bookings, the articles, the links, the latest shows, latest podcasts on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube. Just the work that I'm doing to try to, be a spiritual prospector in search of spiritual gold, but also to help other people become prospectors and to face this next decade of our Roaring 20s with inspiration, encouragement, motivations, and a whole lot of spiritual awesomeness is what I like to say. But the Healing Cafe will pick up right here in about a minute, where I'll actually connect with you, free readings, live readings, spiritual chats, cards, mediumship, where you may actually come into the Zoom room and we may actually do a little bit of mediumship. But happy 4th to you. Thanks for hanging out with me today. Enjoy the rest of your week. Happy July to you. It's already July. I can't believe it. Stay safe out there, and we'll see you next time here on Metaphysical Mocha Mondays, every Monday morning at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, here on the Intuitive Prospector page. So if you're not on the Intuitive Prospector page, make sure to get on that page, like, subscribe, share. We'll see you next week. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. Namaste.